They spun up a Lodge 2.0 family group chat and voted to kick me out of the Smoky Mountain Lodge where my husband and I laid every board 40 years ago. I didn't argue. I opened the safe and took out the old deed. My name was on it twice, and there was a clause they'd never read. The Smokies always smell faintly of damp pine along the porch, like a small, private secret. I set the kettle, listened to the water tap the metal, heard the wind knock softly at the Walker's Ridge Lodge sign. A thin dish towel was folded across the counter, edges worn the way my husband's collar used to be, something calm that time had rubbed smooth. I wiped the glass on his photo, a yellowed picture with a squinting carpenter's smile, then angled it toward the window so he could look at the white frost over the grass. Under the eaves, two wooden rockers still faced each other, mine and his, each chair knowing the habits of its owner, where the left hand rests, how the foot taps when thinking. My phone buzzed 3 times, a familiar rhythm that wobbled this time. Lodge 2.0, family voting. The group name glared over a sunset photo edited to orange. I didn't open it right away. I poured the coffee, warmed my palms on the cup, breathed in the roast, and sat in my rocker. A lark flitted past, leaving a thin sound behind. I pulled the screen down. Brandon, my son-in-law, had the first message. To modernize, we need consensus. If you agree, Mom moves to the storage room behind the garage within 30 days. Thumbs up fell like hail. A cousin I've never met hit. Kelsey stayed quiet a few minutes, then tapped a little heart next to her husband's words. I took a sip. The bitterness thickened at the back of my throat. I set the phone down and looked across at the main house. The new blue LED band Brandon had stuck up ran from the window frame around the chimney like a ribbon tied too loudly on a dress that was already pretty. Every night they switched on the lights, pulled cameras, turned up music. Older weekend guests had begun to complain. Last week, Mr. Taylor, a veteran who tells winter stories from Busan, checked out early and sent a polite sentence that felt like a small knife. June, your place used to be where a man could sleep. I understand new era promises. It's just a few weeks to boost the channel, then the money comes. I heard promises like that my whole life. In the end, it was these hands that carried buckets of mortar, this back that shielded a roof in the rain. Walker's Ridge Lodge didn't survive 40 years on promises. It survived because the kettle screams on time, sheets smell like sun, and a man who knew wood could set a step that doesn't squeak at midnight. That man is in the little cemetery down the hill now. I take a wild daisy every Sunday. The day he went, I promised, I'll keep this lodge steady like you wanted. The phone buzzed again. A voice note from Brandon. Mom, I'll be straight. The old vibe doesn't play on camera. I need the main house for a content house. You can move to the storage room. We'll make it cozy. Majority already voted. Family, you know, majority rules. Love. The word love slid out long, as slick as a plastic bottle cap. I didn't answer. I stood, took the old ring of keys, and went to the small bedroom behind the kitchen. There's a black safe under the bed, not big. My fingers didn't need to look at the dial. They turned from memory. 3 soft clicks, and the door eased open. Inside, next to a little notebook of snow totals, was a stack of paper with the edges polished from being flipped so often. The deed lay on top. Joint tenancy with right of survivorship ran across it. Our signatures from years ago, and the sad day when that line changed meaning. When one dies, the other holds full title. I turned the page and stopped where I always sit up straighter. My name appears again in the year 25 update, under an attached clause. Kelsey and Brandon surely never read. I slid it into a plastic sleeve, smoothed the seam, and shut the safe. When I stood, my knee popped, a small knock of a stubborn old body. Out front, Brandon's car backed in, the muffler popping like it wanted to shatter the quiet. He hopped out in a droopy hoodie, gimbal in hand. 2 young friends I couldn't name followed, hugging bright light boxes. Kelsey came last, wearing the cardigan I bought her once, eyes skittering away from my kitchen. I stepped onto the porch. Mom, I texted the chat. Brandon smiled. Sugar thin. Let's keep it moving, yeah? Smart lock guys here by evening. For what? I asked slowly. To swap the code, integrate with the rig. So you don't, hit the wrong thing, he said, eyes on the camera more than me. And he pointed toward the garage. That back room's big. Few touches, and you're set. I looked at Kelsey. She pressed her lips, fingers twisting, her thumb rubbing a paint chip on the rail like a child tallying homework. Mom, she started, then quit. Just a few months. A few months, I repeated, like an old story. I thought about winters and the line of boots by the door, guests patting down the hall at night because the steps don't squeak. Inside, the pendulum clock beat slow and true. Tonight's our premiere rehearsal, Brandon said, bright. Like 20 people, crew, a couple of influencer friends, a little DJ, you can relax. I got it. If anyone asks, you're just a long-time guest, okay? Guest. dropped into me like a small stone into a dry well. I set my coffee on the armrest and pulled the plastic sleeve from my pocket. The sunshine skimmed the paper, lighting the folds and the blue pen marks from long ago. I didn't hand it over. I moved slow, age has taught me. Say what must be said once, clear enough, then let the silence do the rest. Kelsey, I said. She raised her wee eyes. Do you remember the day your dad finished the step? You sat right there. He slid a cushion under you and made you count the hammer hits to learn addition. Kelsey pressed her mouth tighter. Brandon sighed, checking his watch. Mom, we can do feelings after, Brandon cut in. We're on a schedule. Feelings can go wherever they need to, I said softly. But this house stands on paper first. I set the sleeve on the porch table and flipped it open. If anyone asks who I am tonight, I'll say, I'm the person keeping my promise to my husband. And this, my finger met the familiar line, is what the law calls that promise. Brandon cocked his head, tried to skim the bold text. He shrugged and smiled. Old paperwork, Mom. Doesn't fit the era. Every era, I said, requires the right insurance when you run lights all night, crank music, pack 20 people onto an old wooden deck. I pointed at the flaked paint on the eave. That's 7 years unsanded. The kitchen extinguisher expired last month. I just replaced it. Your insurance is residential, not commercial. If anything happens tonight, I won't let anyone sleep in a house unprotected. The wind rolled through the pines, resin sweet. A squirrel dashed across the porch like someone had cracked a blunt joke. Kelsey swiped a tear. Brandon looked at his two friends, then back at me, irritation starting to pool under his eyes. I didn't tip anything over. I pulled up a chair, sat, set the deed in front of me, and kept quiet. Silence speaks too. I knew there'd be noise later, staged winks, more majority rules. I also knew that in that safe, besides the deed, there was a wax-sealed letter and an addendum they'd never read. I inhaled. The coffee had gone cold and bitter, a different kind of bitter. The taste of a serious conversation about to begin. In the Smokies, fog lifts slow. Everything here is slow. I would be slow too, but each word I set down, like each nail he drove into this house, would go where it belonged. That afternoon, I called regulars to move their bookings. Mr. Taylor answered hoarse with a chest cold. If you need it, I know someone at the county who does safety checks, not to hassle so folks can sleep. I thanked him and said, don't rush. I'll handle it. I walked the long wood hallway. Each step brushed a memory. The third step slight groan. The seventh silent because he sank an extra screw there one winter in 1999. I opened the laundry closet and took out the hardback notebook. 3 lines in my handwriting on the cover. Insurance, safety checklist, county contacts. Keeping my papers straight saves me from arguing with my mouth. I laid everything on the dining table and stacked it. The deed, the old commercial policy endorsement, last year's fire extinguisher inspection, and an addendum with a red wax seal. My husband's letter attached to the use update. I've never shown it to Kelsey. I didn't think I'd need to. I set my scratched reading glasses on top. I knew they'd tell me to set feelings aside. That's fine, but law belongs on the table. By evening, Brandon was running laps, voice cracked from excitement. Deliveries came, cords ran, LEDs stuck along the eaves. Test music thudded like wet snow on tin. I watched without swatting hands away. I circled the kitchen, checked the extinguisher, and wrote, "Replaced, valid 12 months." I taped a notice about pausing unpermitted commercial events, clipped the county summary for assembly in wood structures. The paper sat flat, quiet like me, no threats, just the reminder that rules exist. Kelsey slipped into the kitchen, hand shaking as she poured water. She had on that gray cardigan, thinner than a smoky evening. "Mom, can we talk?" I nodded. She hugged her cup like it might warm the pit in her chest. "If you need a clean, warm roof," I said slowly, "I have that. If you need a stage, you have to ask the county. This house isn't a stage." "You don't get it," Kelsey bit her lip. "People want a story, inspiration. If we pull this off, I swear we'll pay the land tax, fix the porch, re-roof. Why are you filming before you fix anything?" I asked. "And why did the land tax you promised last year show up as delinquent this year?" Kelsey lowered her head. "Some questions don't need words." "I'm scared Brandon will be mad," she whispered. "Every time I say slow down, he says the moment won't wait." I squeezed her hand. It was soft and damp, like pine needles beaded with fog. "Decent moments do wait," I said. "Reckless ones don't." Outside, Brandon hollered, "Kelsey, time." She stood, stepped back, looked at the deed on the table, and didn't read it. "See you tonight." "See you," I said, voice flat. When the door latched, I watched the pendulum clock. The minute hand stayed steady. I drew a line in my notebook. 1900, safety lights, okay, notice posted at main door. I hadn't called the county. I wanted to give them one last chance to stop themselves. At 7:30, the front yard glowed like a pocket stage. Blue LEDs painted the old boards a strange shade, like an old face with makeup laid on too heavy. I stood at the edge. Brandon panned the camera, asked the crew to clap. "Stay out of frame, Mom," he said, passing me as if walking past a shadow. "Be a guest, okay? Like we said." I edged into the porch, but did not leave the door. I eyed the spidered power strips, a 3-tiered tower plugged into a single outlet like a plastic tree grown overnight. I took photos and saved them under Safety 2025-11-10. I make these moves slowly, the way I fold a towel, corner to corner, flat before I'm satisfied. In Lodge 2.0, the multiplied. A distant cousin typed, "Mom June needs to open up to the new era." Someone dropped a snarky GF. I turned off the screen. I don't argue in icons. Around 8, a van unloaded more bodies. Bass thumped. I could smell vape and hot plastic. Kelsey rushed in for a tablecloth. "Can I borrow this?" "For what?" "To hide the cords," she murmured. "Don't hide them," I said. "Hidden is dangerous. Pretty for the frame, ugly for safety." She hugged the cloth, then put it back. "I'm sorry." I poured her water, drink. Her fingers still shook. I know her fear, disappointing a husband, watching cash promises melt like fog. I pulled on a coat and walked to the garage, the place they said they'd fix up for me. It smelled damp. One wall raw. The tube light flickered like a coughing fit. I photographed the uninsulated floor, the aux heater with no inspection tag, the blocked egress behind stacked boxes. I circled to the side of the house and shot the spare propane tank tucked against wood, near where the DJ would stand. In my head, the code words came like someone reading low. Occupancy limits, egress, fire load, commercial general liability. These aren't weapons. They're seatbelts for anyone who sleeps in a timber house. I wasn't calling the county to get even. I was calling to prevent what could happen, and if no one heard the slow words of an old woman, the rules would speak clearly. Mabel from the cabin across the road came with a flashlight and stood beside me. "Too loud, June. I'm afraid one of those kids will slip on the steps." She looked at the LEDs with eyes that had seen 3 kinds of bulbs and 3 kinds of winters. "Want me to ring my boy at code enforcement?" "Not yet," I said. give them another 30 minutes. We stood. The wind shifted, vape and warm plastic thickened. A kid backing up with a speaker nearly missed a step. Brandon snickered. Almost viral. I heard viral and thought of another kind. Fire spreading. I dialed the number Mr. Taylor had given me. "Hello," I said. "This is June at Walker's Ridge. I need a safety check tonight. Not to nail anybody, to keep someone from getting hurt." A low, even voice answered. "Understood. We'll swing by as a welfare check. No citations if it's compliant." I thanked him. When I hung up, my chest loosened some. I turned to Mabel. I called. She nodded and squeezed my shoulder. Slow and steady. Very you. The county team arrived around 9:30. No siren, no flash. 2 people in heavy coats with the shoulder lamps. They called me by name and Brandon sir. They checked exits, outlets, deck load, asked for commercial coverage. Brandon said, "It's a residence." The inspector looked at the rigs, the crowd, the strangers treating it like an exhibit. "Tonight, sir, it's not a residence." I set the plastic sleeve on the porch table, slid out the deed and old endorsement. "I had a commercial policy," I said. "After my husband passed, I sculled down, stopped taking large groups, kept occupancy low for older guests. What you see," I pointed to the cords, "is an event, not permitted." Brandon sneered. "You called the county to bury us." "I called the county to protect you," I said. "If something goes wrong tonight, I can't save anyone." I faced the inspector. "I want to pause this until there's proper insurance and safety clearance." He wrote, "Will temporarily suspend, require dispersal down to fewer than 20, shut down amplified sound, and remove temporary lights." And he looked at Brandon. "We'll need proof of insurance for commercial use." "It's a home policy," Brandon stammered, eyes flicking to the camera like waiting for applause. Only he could hear. "A home policy won't cover a DJ," the inspector said, not unkind, "or guests who had to watch a live stream." A sheriff's deputy with them stepped forward and spoke like an uncle. "Folks, let's clear out. Nobody's getting cuffed if we cooperate. Ma'am, June." He tipped me a nod. "We'll talk paperwork after." Kelsey froze in the yard, clutching the cardigan hem. As the lights dimmed and the heated plastic smell thinned, only wood and night were left. I could hear her breath, ragged. When most were gone, Brandon faced me. "You ruined our future." "What future needs to burn a house to glow?" I asked. "What future needs to shove an old woman into a garage to roll?" He slapped the rail. The LED strip shook and dropped a section. I didn't flinch. The anger in him was for lost audience, not for lies. To me, to taxes, to his wife. We voted. Majority wins, he grasped. I pulled a chair and sat. Silence. Then I slid the deed in front of him and tapped the bold line. Joint tenancy with right of survivorship. I turned to the addendum. Here's where your majority can't go, I said very gently. When one dies, the other holds all rights. And this clause, my finger on the print, restricts 24/7 studio use without commercial insurance and safety approvals. Did you read it? He swallowed. Kelsey stared at the floor. I didn't know, she said. You didn't read, I corrected. The hall clock struck 3 dry notes. Mountain night took its steady rhythm back. The county came back in the morning. They walked room by room and flagged what to fix. Smoke detectors, extinguishers, egress, deck rail load, wiring. I followed and wrote it all down. The inspector nodded at my lack of arguing. I know you, June, he said. You don't call us to pull a stunt. I smiled, tired. These steps haven't dumped anyone in 40 years. Brandon signed the temporary suspension. His hand shook like a man realizing the real world has no smoothing filter. Kelsey stood behind him, eyes swollen. I handed her a travel pack of tissues. She didn't cry again, just took one and nodded. By noon, the insurance company called. Brandon's home policy wouldn't cover last night. They suspended it for misrepresentation. I hung up and leaned back. No triumph, no scorecard, just an exhale, long as the hill into town. That evening, I called Kelsey into the kitchen. Sit. I set a red wax envelope in front of her. Your dad left this, a letter, attached to the year 25 use update. Her hands trembled. She cracked the edge and pulled it free. His handwriting, clean and kind, read, If one day I'm gone, keep the lodge so veterans have a place to slow down. 1 weekend a month for them. No big show, just clean beds and a hot breakfast. If anyone, even our children, tries to turn it into a stage, give them tickets to somewhere else. Kelsey's hand went to her mouth, a small sob. Short letter, 1 sentence, even our children, fit like a mortise, locked flush into a tenon. I'm sorry, she rasped. I know, I said. I used my first name voice with my grown daughter, not the voice for a 7-year-old counting hammer taps. You'll sign a boundary agreement with me. You'll live in the casita. You'll not run the lodge. Brandon will not reside here. When you want supper, I'll cook. She nodded, tears dropping without fuss. Brandon will choose, I said. Choose to live elsewhere or choose to visit as a respectful guest. The next day we sat with the town lawyer. I laid out the deed, addendum, county report, and the fix list. He read and nodded. He underlined, survivorship 100% to June Walker. Then, use restriction, no 24/7 studio without compliance. He turned to Kelsey. Sign here, temporary occupancy agreement. Brandon leaned back, arms folded, smirking, until the lawyer slid over the delinquent land tax ledger. The county will place a lien if unpaid, the lawyer said. And last night's live stream is public evidence. Brandon paled. Some truths don't need volume. We signed. The notary pressed the seal, one dry thunk. It sounded as right as a glass set square on a wooden table. That night I made bean stew, his favorite. The kitchen was warm and smelled of dried oregano, like a summer from years back. I set out one extra bowl without asking who'd eat it. Kelsey wandered in, hair loosely pinned, dark crescents under her eyes. She sat. Mom, she began, then didn't. I know, I said. Tomorrow I'm calling the veterans group. They're coming this weekend. You help me change sheets. She nodded, lips pinched so she wouldn't cry. And Brandon, you don't need to answer me tonight, I said. You need to answer yourself. Later, I stepped onto the porch. Few stars, chairs. Fog hung like a half-drawn curtain. His rocker angled slightly, as always. I put my hand on the arm, felt the ghost weight of a broad, warm palm. I kept it, I whispered. The wind touched the chime to a small ring, enough like a nod. We spent 4 weeks on safety, just like the county report said. New smoke detectors, checked rails, repainted steps, added exit lights, bought a commercial policy, but for low occupancy that suits older guests. I called 2 old carpenters, men who worked with my husband. They did not film, not post stories. They brought boxes of screws, winter tales, and a quiet kind of respect. Kelsey moved into the casita. She sent me her new schedule, mornings cleaning rooms, afternoons at a cooking class in town. No online. After 9 p.m., she peeled the LEDs off the eaves, rolled them neatly, and put them in the garage, where spares go. One evening, she took a broom to the porch without being asked. I opened the door and handed her hot cocoa. Thanks, she said softly. Brandon moved his gear. The sheriff watched easy, like last time. No shouting. He loaded lights, camera on, decks. Before he shut the hatch, he looked at me, honestly, for the first time in months. I messed up, he said. I nodded. Fix it, I said. You don't have to say it. The vets came that weekend. Mr. Taylor led them, carrying an old guitar with a frayed strap. They climbed the freshly painted steps, quieter now. I guided them to their rooms. If any steer squeaks, tell me, I said. They grinned. Nothing squeaks. You overbuilt it. That night there were no blue lights, just warm yellow on the porch to see the soup bowls and the smile lines at the corners of ordinary eyes. Mr. Taylor played bluegrass, his voice thin as fog. Kelsey served cornbread, hands still a touch shaky, eyes less clouded. A white-haired man told a winter story from a country far away. Everyone listened like you listen to rain. I filled the teapot again. I looked around. No cameras, no rigs, just people and clean beds. I thought of his letter, even our children, and felt settled, like placing the last stone in a mountain path. Word spread, Walker's Ridge pauses online events. Folks talked. Some called me ruthless for calling inspectors the night the kids planned their debut. Some called me smart for blocking trouble before trouble. One note read, June, you did right. Nobody votes to burn down their own house. I didn't answer them all. I pinned one paper to the wooden board by the gate. Walker's Ridge Lodge. We're open for people who need good sleep. One weekend a month for veterans. No filming, no DJ, hot soup. Not a press release. Just calling the place by its name. Late, I opened my notebook and wrote, AITA. Am I wrong for calling the county, for suspending my kids' party, for using the deed to overrule a family vote? I sat a long time, pen in the air. Then I added, if a house is a promise, the keeper of that promise isn't wrong. Wrong is using family to push an old woman off the step she nailed with her own hands. I closed the book and set it on the shelf under his photo. Night wind brushed the chime, a thin sound like an old laugh. A few weeks later, Brandon came back alone. No camera, no hoodie. He carried a box. We left this, Kelsey said, eyes down. A keyring rested inside, stamped Walker's Ridge Studio, keys he'd had made. I opened my hand. He set them in my palm, lighter than before. I got a job in the city, he said. The real event kind. He hesitated. If one day I want to drop by, have soup, no filming, nothing, could I? The kitchen door opens at 6, I said. If you come in, turn the light off behind you. He nodded, smiled tired, and left. Kelsey stood on the porch and watched him go. She didn't cry, neither did I. Winter came late. Snow dusted the porch like powdered sugar on a pie. I set a little sign carved from pine, quiet after 9 p.m. Young folks might chuckle, older ones smile warm. I tried the rocker. The squeak was now a steady rhythm. On the table the deed sat in its plastic sleeve, clean, smelling faintly of paper and old coffee. I walked down to the cemetery and laid a daisy on his stone. I kept it, I said again, not with a raised voice, with black and white, with a new extinguisher, with a step that doesn't squeak, by not turning our home into someone else's stage. On the way back, the fog drew off slow. The Smokies looked like an old man with a white beard, nodding at a decision made without noise. I went inside, lit the stove, and set the soup. A little later, I heard Kelsey's light steps. She came in and pulled a chair. "Mom, I'll bake cornbread too, okay?" I nodded. She reached for the flour, smiling, her hands steadier. Somewhere, the Lodge 2.0 chat must have gone quiet or moved on. Walker's Ridge Lodge kept the name it had for 40 years, a name in the right place. And once a month, the house opens for people who've lived through winters longer than the Smokies' snow. They sleep well, drink coffee, listen to a bird cut the air by the porch, and carry on. I top off the kettle, switch off the kitchen light, and leave a small glow in the hall. Before bed, I wrote one last line in my notebook. No one was evicted. Only the wrong things were put back where they belong. I shut it and heard the soft thump of the spine, small and sure, like a house saying it breathes steady.